Okay, hello. We are going to do our rhythm figures or moving figures, or I've had so many names, I forget what it's called. We're going to start with the background because we got to get that finished first. So it might be hard to see, but I have taped down some contact paper, so it's sticky side up, but I've taped down the edges so it won't curl up on me. When you're doing this, it helps to either have a partner or to rip the tape ahead of time. You can tape it down to a table, or if we don't have enough time to finish in one day, we can tape it to another sheet of paper, and that way you can like put it on the drying rack and take it back out when you are ready. We are going to need some sheets of foam that are going to be cut into different shapes. You can do shapes that are geometric, organic, amorphous, a combination of any or all of those, but you are going to cut them out with just regular scissors. I have, you can see over here, already cut some out. You can then just start to lay them onto the sticky side, press them down a little bit and they will stay. You can do things that look like real objects. You can make up your own wild and crazy shapes. It is entirely up to you. But you're going to take, and we want to sort of fill up the space. You don't want a ton of negative areas that are just empty, but you also don't want to like overcrowd your picture. I like setting things in the corner so it gives me a really clear edge, but you can do it how you would like. You can place things throughout in whatever manner most suits your vision. Actually, I don't really like that one. Do that one. That one. You can use the negative spaces that were in between the shapes that you created. So like all pieces are usable. If you have really teeny tiny scraps, you can throw them away when we're done with this. But if you have like larger areas, save them for the next person to use. This, I think, was probably about this much of a piece, and it fills up quite a bit, as you can see. This, I'm going to do one more right here. Okay. You can see that this is pretty well filled in. It's okay if you go a little bit over the edge, that part's fine. And I have a couple extras. I don't really want to use them. The next thing that we are going to do is use our inks. So these are our inks. I chose green and yellow. You can choose a combination of any two colors. I do recommend getting ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. Now I grabbed two that aren't opened because I didn't want them spilling all over my bag on the way home. But yours will probably be used by somebody else, so you won't have to struggle like I am right now to open these unless you run out during class. All right, hang on. I got it, I won. Okay, so you're going to need a popsicle stick and you're going to stir them. Even if they've been used by other people, at the beginning of every class or the first time that anyone's used them in a little while, definitely stir them because they like to separate and they won't print as well. It should be nice and smooth like this. If it's starting to dry out too much, let me know, because it won't print as well when we're actually trying to stamp that on. The next part that you're going to need is this glossy sheet of paper over here, taped on the top and the bottom, taped down to the table. We don't need our scissors right now, but you will need a brayer or a roller. It's just like this. Makes lovely rolly sounds. You get to decide how you're combining these colors. So we want them to mix together. You can share a station, or you'll have to wait for someone to be done. So I'm just adding dots of random colors about the width of my brayer still, and I'm gonna run it through. I can only go up and down. I don't want to go side to side because that'll mix it too completely. When you're using a color like yellow that's really, really pale, you're gonna have to use a lot more of it than any other color that you're mixing with it. But now I'm just gonna kind of go over my designs, picking up more ink when I feel like it's running out. Like this does not feel like it's covered enough. You don't want to see any of the color. It's okay, like I'm mixing some green into it. It's okay, I'm getting some on the actual contact paper that doesn't have things. I can at this point start going in different directions, but the main concern is you want to really cover it so it actually prints well. This might be a little light, but I'm going to try it. When you're sticking these down, just flip them upside down and rest them on this bar right here. That way you don't cover the table in ink. To stamp these, we have two options. Either you will have had time to make a watercolor background, or you will be using a white sheet of paper. I'm going to start with the white sheet of paper. You're just going to stick it down right on here. And then you're going to rub on the back with a hand. You can use the little rollers from 6th grade, but they're not really big enough for this, and I think it's actually a little bit easier if you actually use your hand, because then you can feel where the foam is through the back of your paper and make sure you're getting a really nice stick. It doesn't matter if I'm getting these little bits on the back, we're never going to see it for the project. You're just trying to make sure you get the top part. If we peel this back, okay. All right, not bad. You can see where it got like the contact paper had a big open spot, so it gets connected. If you have shapes really close together, it's less likely for it to have ink in between there. But I think this is really fun. Now I'm going to test it out on the background that has watercolor, but I can't just print directly on top of this. I have to roll out more ink. So I'm going to scoop out more ink over here. Well, not like that where I accidentally get it all over my table, but you know, be better than me, guys. Be better. That yellow's a little runny. When in doubt, blame the supplies. Again, I'm going to roll through. I don't want so much ink over here that it makes big gloopy mess. I just want enough to really coat my roller. And again, this is now going to get color in different spots. You're never going to have two exactly the same prints. Okay, and now I'm going to see, you can tell that I took similar colors in my prints as in my background to hide any mistakes if I make them. I'm going to lay that one back down. Again, as long as you're not moving the paper around, you should get a nice print. Rub on the back. It does not take very long. You can actually start seeing where the pieces are, so if you want to avoid areas of the contact paper, you can do that. But like I showed, it doesn't really make a huge difference because we're just making an abstract background. Okay, and when you think you've got it good, peel this back. Yeah, and something like that. Okay, and now these have to dry before we can put anything on top of them, but you can see how you can make multiple similar but not identical prints with the same thing. Oh, fun fact that I forgot to tell you guys. When you are all done with this, you can literally just peel the whole thing up, roll it all together. We do not need this, and it goes straight in the trash. You cannot recycle. This is just garbage right here. And ta-da, it's nice and clean. All right, for the last part of this project, you are each going to get one of these little handouts here, and you are going to cut out the body pieces that you need in order to create the pose. So we've done lots of different poses in class. You've drawn several of them. You're going to pick one that you would like to use as your final copy. Now, I have already gone through and cut out all of the pieces. Now, you don't have to cut out all of them. You just have to cut out the ones you need. I'm going to do 2 versions with my 2 sets, so don't panic. You only have to do 1. But I wanted to show you a couple of things. So if I'm starting with the head here, I'm actually gonna turn my paper this way so I make sure I have room to fit. A thing to remember is that the chin does not overlap with the torso. We want to leave a little bit of space for the neck because that's not really a body part I cut out because it can look different based on your pose. But the rest of your pieces should actually overlap a little bit. So like your upper arm here needs to overlap with your shoulder in order to make that. Your torso and your hips just very lightly overlap. The forearm and the upper arm overlap just a little bit. The thigh, so the curved part of the hip goes this way, and then that leaves you space to overlap the legs into the hips. And these knees, your calf overlaps your thigh to make that kneecap. Now, if you're looking this way and going, oh, but I don't want the foot to go that way, I need it to go the other way, this can just flip over and it can go either direction. So you don't have to panic that, you know, the heel's facing the wrong way. It's not. You get to decide. Same thing with the arm here, overlapping up here. And then maybe we'll throw an arm up here. Now, if I'm looking at this, I go, this hand doesn't look right. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to go this way. Just flip it, okay? And then this is what you're gonna glue down to your paper. Okay, so you just need a teeny tiny little bit of glue. I like to start with the head, but we're using a glue stick. I'm not even worried about really sticking it down too much. Just enough to get it on the paper so my shapes don't move on me when I try to cut them out. But we don't want it so thick on there that we can't peel it off later. So again, this part should go very quickly. Whoop. I think I glued more of my finger than the paper right there. A reminder that the top of the writing should be the top of the upper arm here. You know, the thighs are wider at the top, so we want the font to be going the correct direction. Now with the black paper, it's not as big a deal if you're gonna leave this paper on here and glue it on top of the background. But if you're using white, you definitely need to be able to pull those back off. So I'm gonna do the other one and then I'll be back. Okay, I've got my two versions. I am now gonna go ahead and cut them out. I'm gonna start with this one that's more complex. You can see the arms look a little weird, but it's really because I glued the torso down first, and so this arm should have been tucked behind there, but it'll all make sense when we just have a silhouette. So I'm gonna go just a little bit outside of where my shapes are, just almost like a little bubble cut around them. I can always go back in and trim up things later, but I want to make it easier on myself to actually cut stuff out. Always turning the paper, not the scissors. Now I do have to make sure that I cut in between the body parts. So in between these legs, in between the leg and the arm. Okay, again, when you get into these little bits, do a lot of little cuts. Do not try to cut it all out as one. Making sure not to give yourself weirdly proportioned bodies. Like this is a little pointy, so I'm gonna go back in and round it up. you can keep flipping it over to the other side. If I move this out of the way, you can see the contrast better. So now it looks like a figure running. Now, if I go back here, there is like a little gap here, but it's so tiny. You can cut it if you'd like to, and the nice part is because we are going to glue these down, I can just cut across here and then cut into the little space. And so now that little gap is there. Ooh, if I don't drop it. And then when I glue this down, you won't see that this is cut because they're going to be right next to each other. So at this stage, you can then go through and peel all of these off. It doesn't have to look pretty on this side because this is the side we're going to glue down to your background. Like I said, with the black paper, it's not as big a deal that you pull all this off, but if you're choosing the white paper because your background design is a little bit darker, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you get the parts that have writing on them off, otherwise it will show up. So now this, I'm going to use this to protect my counter. We will glue across the whole thing. Now we don't want just a little bit of glue. We want a good amount of glue that's going to really make it stick. Again, put something underneath it while you're doing it, a piece of scrap paper or whatnot. Move that out of the way. Grab my background from before, and now you can arrange your person wherever you would like on the paper. So I think mine is going to be right here. Now looking at it, I probably could have cut in the shoulder a little bit here more, but it's stuck on now, so it's done. Yay! I'm going to repeat the process with the second one, show you that. Alright, and you can see I finished both of them now. I did put them in different directions because I thought the figures fit the papers better in those directions, but again, that part's up to you. This is basically how you do the project. You'll have one of these at the end that you turn in for a grade.